Hi everyone. Okay, we are working on math lesson 33, session 3, on page 727. 33, lesson 3. Nice. Okay, so still sorting shapes, but now it's not about sides. It's not like parallel and perpendicular sides. It's all about angles today. So what type of angles it has. Okay, so just a refresher on the side over here. If you want to write these notes down, you can, or you can just follow along. So acute angle, right angle, and obtuse angle. Those are the three main angle types. There's also a straight angle, but I mean, I guess we could draw that too. Straight angle. Okay, so acute angles are the ones that are, you know, the cute little angles. So less than 90 degrees. So they have a narrow opening. Like if you do it with your fingers, that's a right angle, perfect L, straight right corner, and then narrower. So if you make the opening of your angle narrower, then it's an acute angle. A right angle are the ones that are straight to the side and straight up, like that, where it makes a perfect 90-degree angle. Okay, and you can use a piece of paper to check that to see if it's a perfect corner or not. An obtuse angle is the one, and it's hard to do with your fingers, but if that's a right angle, then it's wider. See, I can't stretch them. Right angle, wider. So it's easier to do with your arms, you know, if you hold them out. So an obtuse angle, there's the bottom ray, but the other one isn't going to go straight up and down like a right angle. It's going to be wider, bigger opening. Okay, and a straight angle, two rays meet in the middle, just a straight line. Okay, and that one's 180 degrees. All right, so, well, I guess, let's see, less than 90 degrees, exactly 90 degrees, greater than 90 degrees, always 180 degrees. Okay, just a refresher. We know all this from past lessons. But now we're sorting shapes based on those angles, okay? So a classroom computer game shows a set of categories and a set of shapes. The player puts each shape in the correct category. Draw a line from each shape to the category it belongs in. Okay, so that's gonna get messy. We're just drawing lines from the category to whatever shape it makes. So to do that, first I'm gonna label all my shapes. Okay, let me zoom in on them a little bit more. So what I mean is I want to label every corner, every angle for what type it is with like a letter, okay? And I've been doing that in previous lessons too, but so this corner right here has a narrow little opening, so that's an acute angle. That means the opposite one is also acute, it's just facing the other direction. And this is a wide opening, so it's obtuse and obtuse. Okay, so I like to label mine like that so that it's easy to see. I don't have to think about it again. I already have it all done. Okay, that and this is basically the same shape, just shorter, right? So this is acute, acute, obtuse, obtuse. That one's already labeled for us. That's a right angle. Okay, this is acute, acute. Okay, this triangle has 3 acute angles. All of those are the same little acute angle. On shape E, this bottom one is obtuse and obtuse. Acute up here, acute. And F is already labeled for right angles. Okay, now that I have them all labeled, every angle, every corner is labeled for me, now I can easily classify them for their category. Okay, so acute only would be this one. Just D has only acute angles. So from acute only, just to shape D. That's the only one. Right only, so which shape has only right angles? That would be F. So from here all the way to F. Acute and right angles. that would be C, acute and right. Just that one, I think. And acute and obtuse. So that would be the rest of them. Acute and obtuse, B and A. See what I meant about getting messy? It's just kind of lines all over the place. So, that's all we're doing for that one. And for pretty much this whole lesson, it's just classifying them based on what kind of angles they have. So if you're good at identifying the angles, like if that part wasn't confusing or tricky, like if you could easily see, that's obtuse because that top line doesn't go straight up and down from that bottom one. It doesn't make a right angle, it makes a wider angle, so that's obtuse. And that one is narrow, so it's acute. So if labeling the angles is easy for you, then this whole part of the lesson, this whole session 3, will be pretty E-word for you, okay? So for the try it section, arrow, we did it. We drew the lines. I'm not gonna redraw everything right there, so nice work, done. Next page, 728. I'm gonna zoom back out a little. Okay, so there's our problem again. These are the different strategies you can use. So picture it, you can use a model to help sort shapes based on angles. So like I said, you can use the corner of a sheet of paper as a model of a right angle. Compare each angle to the paper corner. For example, hold up the paper corner to the trapezoid. So like this trapezoid right here for E, I just have a post-it note, but you could use a post-it or a piece of paper or whatever you have. Just make sure the corner is already made for you. Like if you try and cut 90 degrees, but you cut it a little bit off, then, you know, won't be a right angle. So if you hold this up to the bottom of that trapezoid, then this side over here, I can tell doesn't line up with the corner of the paper, so it's not a right angle, and it's bigger than the paper corner, so it's gonna be an obtuse angle, okay, like they did here. Okay, and then I can do the same thing with this corner up here on the trapezoid of E. So I could hold up the paper like to the top of it, okay, and then the line should line up with this paper if it's a right angle, but it's not, it goes in. See, it's behind the paper, going like this across it, so that means it's narrower than the paper, it's an acute angle. Okay, and then model it, that's what I do. I label all the corners of my shapes, making A for acute, R for right, or just like that instead of the R, and O for obtuse. So it's easier for me to see it like that if I label them all. That's just how I like to do it. You don't have to, but that's how I'll be going through the lesson because that's my favorite strategy. So in the reflect part, that's what I would write. I like to label the shapes, okay? Connect it questions on the next side, 729. So we'll use the problem from the previous page to help you understand how to sort shapes into categories based on angles. Number 1, look at parallelograms A and B. Check that you have drawn lines to the correct groups. Do the two parallelograms belong to the same group? Explain. So I'm going to look at the previous page to see what group I put them in. A and B, I drew lines to this group. Acute and obtuse, that's the group I put them in. So is that the correct group? Well, they both have acute angles and they both have obtuse angles, so yeah, I guess I put it in the right group. Or they belong in the same group. Okay, so for number 1 on that page, yes, they belong in the same group. And then it was acute and obtuse angles was the group. Okay. And then it says explain. So how do I know they belong in that group? They both have two acute angles and 2 obtuse angles. Okay, that is plenty of explanation for that problem, so pause it if you need to catch up writing, and let's move on. Number 2, look at the 2 triangles. Check that you have drawn lines to match the triangles with their groups. Describe the angles in each triangle. So just looking at this page, they're talking about C and D. Okay, so they're both triangles, but they go to different groups because this is an acute angle and an acute angle, but there's a right angle there, and all 3 of these are acute. Okay, so they don't go to the same group. This one goes to acute and right, this one goes to acute only. But that's okay, that's where they belong. We did it right, they're just different types of triangles, which we get to in the next session. Complicated lesson, but for now, just talking about the angles. Check that you've drawn lines to match them with their groups. Describe the angles in each triangle. So triangle C, we just have to describe them. So triangle C has 1 right angle and 2 acute angles. Sorry, I keep cutting you off there. And then triangle D has 3 acute angles. Sorry, my handwriting is so bad. I'm writing at like a really weird angle so that I don't block the camera. Okay, number 3. Look at the trapezoid and rectangle, which has right angles only. So I'm going to pause there and look at it. So trapezoid and rectangle. Which one has the right angles? That would be F, the rectangle. Okay, so back to my problem. Rectangle. Look at, picture it. To which group does the trapezoid belong? Okay, so this trapezoid right here, which group does he go into? Acute, acute, obtuse, obtuse. That's the group. Okay, so rest of 3, it would be acute and obtuse. Check that you've drawn lines to the correct groups. Check, did it. Okay, number 4, explain how to sort shapes. It's so hard to say quickly. It's like the seashells. Explain how to sort shapes based on whether they have acute, right, or obtuse angles. So just explain how you know which group they go in. And then down here for reflect, tell me what strategy you like most. Do you like using the paper corner? Do you have a piece of paper next to you that you're using to check the corners? Or do you like to label them like I like to do? Just whatever strategy you like the best. Okay, so explain how to sort them based on angles, reflect on what your favorite strategy is, and then we have some practice problems on the back. So pause to do those few, and then let's move on. Play when you're ready. Number 6. So these are our apply it problems. So we're going to use what we just learned to work on these. If you're feeling good about this part of the lesson already, the angles and everything, pause the video right now, try these on your own, and then come back and play the video and check if you got them right. Or if you're checking your answers like you just did this whole lesson already and you're just using this video to check your answers, that's awesome. Or if you're not feeling great about it just yet, if it's not the E word for you yet, let's do it together. Okay, number 6. Which of these groups does the rhombus below belong in? So here are the groups. Acute angles only. Oh, sorry, I crossed it out. See the angle accidentally. I'm like writing at a weird, sorry. Anyway, obtuse angles only, right angles only, both acute and obtuse angles, or both right and obtuse angles. So that's a lot of categories. So I'm gonna label it because that's what I like to do. This is acute, obtuse, acute, obtuse. Okay, so now I'm going to look again, what does it belong in? So now I can cross this one out, acute angles only, because it doesn't only have acute angles. It does not have only obtuse angles. it does not have any right angles. There we go, both acute and obtuse. Okay, so it belongs in both acute and obtuse angles. But I'm not going to end there because it says explain. So I'm going to say because it has two of each. Okay, that means two of each type of angle. Two acute, two obtuse. And that's the category I put it in. Ta-da! And ta-da for explaining. So this is for the right category. This is for your explanation. Number 7, circle the shape that has an acute angle, a right angle, and an obtuse angle. So one of each. One acute, one right, one obtuse. If I label this one's a rectangle, so I know these are all perfect square corners. So those are all right angles. So it doesn't have one of each of those. This is an obtuse angle, obtuse, acute, and acute. Okay, I'm missing the right angle. Can't be that one. This one down here is a perfect right angle. Okay, but if I check this one, this top corner of that shape with my paper, it looks like a right angle, but it's actually not. See, if I'm on that corner, that line actually doesn't track along the top of the Post-it note. It angles up. So this one is an obtuse angle. That just looks like a dot, sorry. My O got a little wild. This one is a big obtuse angle, and this one is a little acute angle. There. Right angle, obtuse angle, acute angle. So, hey, that one has at least one of each. Just that shape. Okay, and number 8. The shapes below have been sorted into 2 groups based on their angles. Explain how the shapes could have been sorted. So what could you have named this group? What could you name this group? Okay, so there's lots of things that you could have said about each group, right? This could be, group 1 could be at least one right angle. Okay, group 2 could be no right angles, because none of these have right angles. No right angles. Or what else could this one have been? I also see at least one obtuse angle on all of those, or at least one acute angle. At least one obtuse, or at least one acute. Okay, so there's lots of options for that one. Or you could have another, could be at least one right angle, because they both have that. But you could also say no obtuse angles, because there's no obtuse angles in either of those. Okay, so there's lots of options. You don't have to write down all of them. These are just some ideas about how you could sort those shapes, or how you could classify that group and this group. Okay, so next we have the practice pages on page 731. So just front and back. First there is an example problem. They labeled all the corners, all the angles for us already, and they drew lines to the matching groups. So good for them. Okay, on number 1 down here, they want us to write the number of acute, right, and obtuse angles for each pentagon shown in the table below. So these are both pentagons because they both have 5 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So pentagons, 5 sides. So how many of each? So first I'm going to label my corners. That's a right angle. That's a right angle. Obtuse, acute, obtuse. And then this one, since all the sides are even, it's not like a weird like sideways house shape or like an arrow like that one. all of these are the exact same angle. Like if you were to measure it with a protractor, they would all be exactly the same. They are all obtuse angles. Okay, so how many acute angles on X? There's 1, 2 right angles, 2 obtuse angles. Okay, and how many acute for this one? 0, 0 right, 5 obtuse. So if you'll notice, there are 5 corners, and it adds up to 5. There are 5 corners, should add up to 5. It's also equal to the number of sides there are in the shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 5. Okay? So number 2, explain how these pentagons are different based on their angles. So how are they both different? We could say pentagon X, the first one, has 1 acute, 2 right, and 2 obtuse. Sorry, making sure you're centered still. 2 obtuse. Period. Pentagon Y has 5 obtuse. Okay, I'll give you 1 star for that whole row, 1 star for that row, and a star for number 2. Okay, and back page, and we're done. Okay, number 3. I'm gonna zoom in a bit. Okay, tell whether each shape belongs in the group described. Okay, so did they name it the right thing? For this red rectangle, does it have all right angles? I could label it right, 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 right. And I know rectangles definitely have only right angles, so yes, it's in the right group. For this one, do they have right and acute angles? If I label it, that's acute, obtuse, obtuse. So no, they put that one in the wrong category. Acute, obtuse, obtuse, acute, obtuse and acute angles. Yep, checks out. Okay, this arrow shape. Let's see, that's a right angle. That's a right angle. This is a tiny little acute angle. Acute. That one's kind of tricky. I'm going to use my Post-it note and check that one there. Yep, I think that one is a right angle. Okay, so does it have right and obtuse angles only? No, it does not. It has no obtuse angles, and it has 2 acute angles right here. And for this hexagon, all obtuse angles, yep. So it goes yes, no, yes, no, yes. Star, 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 star. All right, number 4. Describe a group that the 2 shapes at the right belong in based on the kinds of angles the shapes have. So I'm going to label the angles in these shapes. Right angle, obtuse, acute. Right angle, obtuse, obtuse, acute. So what category could I put them in? They have at least one of each, so I'm going to say at least one right, obtuse, and acute angle. Okay, so at least one of each. You could say that, or you could write obtuse, acute, label them all. Okay, number 5. Look at the shapes in problem 4. So these 2 shapes, where do they belong in the table below? Draw each shape in the column in which it belongs. Explain your answer. So we already labeled it, so we know that they have right angles, obtuse angles, and acute angles. So they go into this category, both of them. And they want me to draw these things? Yikes, okay. Okay, not bad, got the orange one. Not drawing them at the same angle they are because that looks tricky. Okay, not bad. That's it. Oh, we didn't get a star for explaining that one. Okay, so they both go in that category, and then explain why they go into that category. Well, because they have at least one right, one obtuse, and one acute angle. There's my explanation. Haha, cheating. They didn't give me lines down here to write my answer anyway, so let's just call that good. There's my explanation. Okay, so that's it for session 3. But for session 4, I wanted to tell you guys a bit of a hint or a preview. I had to get my paper ready. So session 4, the next video, is sorting triangles, and it's difficult. It's a difficult day, difficult session. So there's 6 different ways that you can classify a triangle, and I made this, you know, like in class when we would normally make big posters together for all these math things, and we can't now because we're at home. But I made this poster about the different triangle types for this session and the rest of this lesson. So the new packets that you're picking up from school this week have this poster in it. So I copied this, it's in all your packets, search for it there, but I will also be referencing and showing this poster during this session and session 5, okay? So if you don't have this page yet because you don't have your packet yet, but you want to continue on to session 4, maybe pause the video right here and copy this poster down on a piece of paper, okay? That would be awesome. So you can do that, but I'll just be showing it and working from it for the next session. All right, bye guys.